Hello everyone, it's Sakura here, and for today, welcome back to another video regarding about Naruto Boruto Ultimate Ninja Storm Connections. I'll mostly be calling it Storm Connections the entire video because it's more easier to pronounce it this way. But anyways, last week I talked about my thoughts and opinions regarding about this game. Given that this is just a re-release of the same 4 games we've been playing all for like a while now, and given from the fact that we've already gotten the trilogy of 1 through 3, and then after that, the 4th version on the Switch, I feel like this kind of felt a bit unfair to some fans who've been playing this game or are either newcomers to this one. Like, the last update we've gotten for Storm 4 was 2020, where they added some of the Boruto DLC of Momoshiki and Kinshiki Otsutsuki, and then the Boruto designs for most of the old generations of Naruto. But you know what's the most funnest part about talking about Naruto Storm games in general? The characters. Most of them are really well balanced. Well, okay, no, never mind. They are broken and not balanced at all. But some of the characters, while they are some copies, it is such a great thing to see how large the roster has been going on since the very first Ultimate Ninja Storm game. But in this video, I just want to be going through and predicting my personal characters and picks on what I'm going to be talking about, and there's a lot of things I really have to mention in terms of each character one by one. So first of all, we have to talk about the character roster in general. You see, back in the first Storm game, it had about 25 playable characters, not including the support characters since they don't honestly count as playable characters. Then there's also Naruto Storm 2, it has 44 playable characters. Then in Naruto Generations, we also got 72 characters. Then in Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm 3, along with Full Burst, it's about 80 characters, along with I guess 90 more thanks to the Full Burst version. And then after that, Naruto Storm Revolution had over 100 characters to be exact. And then finally, the latest franchise, the latest installment of the Storm franchise, has around 125 characters, including all of the DLC. So that's pretty much a large roster, right? Well, as I mentioned earlier, most of these characters are pretty unique, but some of them are straight up carbon copies of each other. For example, Itachi and the reanimated version of Itachi. Both of those characters have the same moveset, except from the fact that they both have different ultimates. That's just about it. Gaara has two types of character slots. Same with Killer Bee, except with a different ultimate as well. But as of right now, we got around, with Storm Connections, we've got around 127 different characters, thanks to the addition of Asura and Indra Otsutsuki. Those are the only 2 characters we know as of right now, and in the last video I mentioned talking about this game, I was told that there were going to be more new characters, so I don't want it to be really worried anymore. The question is, how many characters will there be exactly? From my personal standpoint, I would say at around maybe 10 to 14 different characters. 14 just seems right enough. The real question is whether or not some of them are going to be new characters. Like I mentioned, some of them are carbon and paste copies. Like Naruto Storm 1, I mentioned that's 25 playable characters, right? But then when you get to Storm 2, it's 44 playable characters. The thing is, however, is that 8 of them are characters that have already gotten their movesets intact and no changes. There's about 30-something characters that managed to get a brand new moveset, given that the pre-time skip characters do not exist in this game anymore, and now the Shippuden characters all have unique and different movesets. So you can kind of tell that the whole point of new characters can be a bit difficult in terms of, how they're ever going to do it. Plus, CC2 is no stranger to having carbon copy characters. Aside from the Naruto Storm series, which has a lot of carbon copies of a few characters, like, I mean, come on, we got like 4 Obitos here, or like 5, or everything else. Demon Slayer Hinokami Chronicles has like 5 to 6 Academy characters, and they all play the same except with a different ultimate. So they're just no stranger to that sort of thing. So don't really be surprised if I'm ever going to be mentioning these type of characters that might play the same, except maybe with a different move set and ultimate and all. Yeah, that's just a lot. But like I mentioned, 127 characters with the inclusion of 2 new ones thanks to Asura and Indra Otsutsuki. Now we get to talk about what characters are going to be added in the game. First of all is how the roster is going to be laid out. It is honestly kind of a mess in Storm 4, but I honestly don't mind it, but it is kind of tiring trying to find a character that you want given how the roster pretty much looked like this. I kind of wish they made that format in a way that Storm 3 and Full Burst did, instead of just having to mash up characters all in different slots. Instead, just have the entire roster in hand, so it will be kind of somewhat easier to get these characters overall. I just kind of want to get this layout out of the way, but aside from that, first character I thought it has to be a lot of Boruto representations, because given with the anime at this point, it's kind of obvious that there will be a lot of Boruto characters in this one. And besides, the game is literally called Naruto and Boruto, so they might include a few notable Boruto characters. The first one I have to mention is Kawaki. Kawaki obviously plays a big role in the series, and given with Kawaki, it's just such an obvious pick at this point. You know, I mean, after all, Kawaki is a character that many fans, I including myself, are wanting, and given how he plays in Shinobi Strikers, I wouldn't be surprised if they decided to make the moveset that is kind of a mix of Shinobi Strikers, but also having that CC2 flair into it. Next up is another obvious one, being Baryon mode Naruto. Given that, you know, given how very popular this new form is in the anime community, I really think it's obvious to put in Baryon mode Naruto in this one. Yeah, I mean, yeah, Naruto Storm, I mean, yeah, Naruto, you know, we've already gotten the Boruto version of Naruto Storm and all, and everything else, but even if that's the case, I'm just trying to say is that if this character is somehow not going to be in the base roster, then that would be kind of a big problem as well. And given with more forms, and like I mentioned with whole carbon copies and all, I guess we can also add, you know, Karma mode and Boruto in this one. That would basically make it, I guess you can say that this is like the fourth Boruto in the game. I mean, given, you know, he could probably have the Rasengan mixed with Momoshiki's power inside of it, and you can really tell that CC2 is going to do all that as carbon and paste copies. Another thing I actually have to mention is that in my last video, I was told that in the official Bandai Namco website, there will be an original news story. It's unknown whether they're going to be covering the rest of the much of the Boruto story with the Kara arc, given that the Boruto anime I've heard is currently going to be on an indefinite hiatus, so it may at least take a while until we get to see characters like Ada and Daemon into the game. So for now, I guess if they're going to be going with another original story, I feel like we won't get to see the other Boruto characters in it, but for now, you know, Momoshiki, Boruto and all, and Karma mode and all, yeah, that's kind of obvious. Alright, now we get to some villains. We got, you know, we got Ishiki, Jigen, Kashin Koji, and then Code. Like, these four are, like, vital to the story at all. I would mention Delta later, but I will talk about it when we get to the point of the DLC. Ishiki makes sense. I mean, come on, it's one of the big bad in the Boruto anime right now. Jigen, I'm very mixed with, given how he doesn't really appear in Shinobi Strikers. Plus, we do get to see him fight for a bit against Naruto and Sasuke, but I am curious to see if this character is going to make it in along with Ishiki as well. For Kashin Koji, it's going to be a bit of a mix, because I can't tell whether CC2 is going to make it an original moveset, or maybe have some moves that is kind of very similar to Jiraiya, given that we know that Kashin Koji is just like some sort of clone of Jiraiya. So maybe it can have some forms of Jiraiya, but at the same time, maybe mix in of Kashin Koji at the same time. I don't know, the whole point of this character seems really confusing enough. And for Code, while we haven't seen the full power of Code yet in the Boruto anime, I will say that Code will have some sort of unique moveset into it, while also mixing in that Karma symbol as well. Next up is a character I'm surprised wasn't part of the 2020 DLC when Momoshiki and Kinshiki came out, that being the adult version of Konohamaru. I mean, we've already gotten the adult versions of most of the characters, of most of the old generations of Naruto, except Neji, sadly, but I am surprised Konohamaru didn't get one. I mean, he already has a full model in both the Boruto story mode and also in one of the Team Ultimates, and given that we've seen him how he plays, it's already a complete moveset, so maybe just rehash adult Konohamaru into a fully playable character. Next up is another thing that is kind of mixed with me if the Boruto anime is not going to make it in terms of CC2 in this game's long term and all, because given with CC2's latest games and Bandai Namco, you can see how much they're making these games long term now with Dragon Ball FighterZ, Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, and you know, a few Dragon Ball games along with Demon Slayer. Actually, I'm not sure about Demon Slayer, to be honest, but even if that's the case, the whole yearly DLC is now over and pretty much going to do with a more long term DLC DLC with the adult version of both Boruto and Kawaki. We haven't seen them how they fight yet. We've seen how they kind of fight in the beginning, and I think the Boruto manga is very close to the time skip. But even if that's the case, it depends on whether or not the game's gonna be, alive enough. If the anime is gonna be on an indefinite hiatus. And while we're at it, just screw it, just put these two in the game. I want to see how they fight. I don't really care for spoilers at this point, and neither does CC2. They've already spoiled like the entire ending of Shippuden, so I don't think fans should be surprised that we would be spoiled by both adult Boruto and Kawaki. Alright, we're done with a lot of Boruto representations. Now we have to talk about some real Naruto representations. Here's our two most notable characters, Anko, Kurenai, and Anko. I'm surprised these two weren't playable at all. I mean, we've seen Kurenai fight a few times, and same with Anko. And we've seen both of them also being shown as side characters, supporting characters in the very first Storm game, and in some cases in Naruto Ultimate Ninja, we can see both Anko and Kurenai both playable. I'm just surprised these two weren't even added as playable characters, given how very creative, CC2 can be when it comes to some of these characters being actual playable characters without having them either having very low screen time. I mean, that applies to both Kurenai and Anko, so it's just weird to see them not playable at all. So, yeah, I think it's time we can finally give them the respect they deserve, especially Kurenai, because ever since Itachi put that genjutsu on her, she has not been the same character since. So, yeah, we finally get to see these two characters that isn't just a, supporting character for once. And the last character I had to mention in terms of adding new characters from the base game is Zetsu. Zetsu is a character that doesn't really fight as much, but does play a vital role in it. But as I mentioned, CC2 is very creative when it comes to characters who doesn't get enough screen time and making their moveset interesting to what they are. So I guess you can find some way to make Zetsu playable, just have both white and black Zetsu all together and just have the Akatsuki version. We've seen that in the Team Ultimate. I think it's time we get to see that with this one as well. And that's pretty much the base roster, but I do have to mention some DLC characters as well, given that CC2 is no stranger to DLC. Same with Bandai Namco. Now, the DLC, almost all the DLC is straight up just going to be a lot of Boruto characters, so please don't mind that. I mean, come on, if this game is just going to be called Naruto Boruto Storm Connections, I really think it's best to have a lot of Boruto representation, I guess. First up, Shikadai. We've seen his character model and moveset in the Boruto story in Storm 4, so no surprise there. But I am curious about Sumire, since we've seen her kind of fight in the Boruto anime, and then I think we've seen her fight in the manga. I can't recall, but Sumire, I guess, would be a cool character. But Shinki, Gaara's adopted son, I can kind of see really happening. I mean, it's vital to the Chunin exams, and it's vital to the story, so it's obvious that we would see some form of, Boruto character in this one, given which Shinki as a whole. And while we're at it, we're also going to talk about some canon characters, because in the Boruto story, there's just a lot of characters that are already gotten their model set, so why not make the moveset this one, like Chocho, for example. And we can also see a few characters like Iwabe, and then this filler character being, Urashiki, that I've seen many want. I'm not gonna lie, I actually do like Urashiki, but I really don't, I'm not sure why many would want him as a playable character. I just wanted to add him just in case fans might mention him in the comment section below. And as I mentioned earlier, I do really hope to see Delta in this one, just to have that full-on big Kara set in this one. Then I am curious to see how they're able to make Himawari into a playable character. We've seen her fight in the show, we've seen her fight a few times in the manga, and I am curious to see how CC2 manages to make both these combos with both, her and her brother, and then I guess Kagura as well. I mean, I don't really care that much for Kagura. I don't know how I'm remembering some of these filler characters. I'm just saying, okay, if Mecha Naruto, a filler character, gets added into the Storm game, then so can some of these filler characters. And then last but not least, just to end it off with, some Naruto representation with the Gold and Silver brothers, Kinkaku and Ginkaku. Yeah, and they already appeared in Storm 3, so it's no surprise right there. And that was pretty much the entirety of my predictions for Naruto Storm connections. So, do I honestly expect most of these characters to get in? I mean, aside from like 10 I can totally expect, I don't really expect most of these to get in. Like I said, these are only just predictions, and given with how very limited Bandai Namco can be at times, and with the fact that Storm 4 already has like over 120 characters, I would be shocked to see if they able to make more characters, like around over 10 or maybe 15 characters overall. But I want to know your thoughts and opinions down below about this. Who do you think will be added in Storm Generations? Who is your favorite character that you want to see be in a playable character? Let me know your thoughts and opinions down below about this. And so with that, leave a like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell for more videos, follow my Twitter, and I'll see you guys next time. And remember this: once a legend, always a legend.